You're listening to Games from the Cellar, the board gaming podcast featuring authentic board game conversations. I'm Steven, your host, and tonight I was joined by Chris and Sam to play Roll Through the Ages, the Bronze Age. Tell us about Roll Through the Ages, Adrian.
Roll Through the Ages, designed by Matt Leacock, was first published by Eagle-Gryphon Games in 2008. It was nominated for a Golden Geek Award for Most Innovative Board Game, Best Family Board Game, and Best Two-Player Board Game. It was also nominated for the Spiel des Jahres in 2010. My husband told me I should just say Spiel des Jahres.
Yeah, that's how the board gamers say it.
But I speak a little bit of German, so I'm saying it properly.
That's why we have you.
Okay. At the time of this recording, Roll Through the Ages has a 6.9 rating with 12,000 ratings on BoardGameGeek and has a ranking of 879. It is a 1 to 4 player light complexity game that should play in about 30 to 45 minutes.
So thank you for joining us in the cellar as we go in depth with Roll Through the Ages. All right, on the table is Roll Through the Ages from Eagle-Gryphon Games. This is
the late Bronze Age edition.
The box is the Bronze Age, but there's an additional sheet that you can get off Board Game Geek or off Eagle-Gryphon that's the late Bronze Age. There's a few extra developments. There's the introduction of ships, and I think some of the numbers are a little bit different, but we've played both versions. The late Bronze Age is the one we like to play, so that's what we're going to be playing today.
Does it do something with the way the game ends? Like one player has 7 developments, and I think on that one it was only like 5 developments.
Yeah, it's only 5. So if all the monuments are collectively built, ends the game, or if one player has 7 developments in the late Bronze Age.
Yeah.
In the regular Bronze Age, it was 5 developments because there were less developments. So you have more choice, and you have an opportunity to further key in on how you want your civilization to be.
I think when it was only 5, it really cut down. You get your machine working, and the game was over. This one kind of lets it at least have a turn or two that you get to reap what you sow.
It lets it breathe.
Yeah.
Which is good, because sometimes in engine builders you want to run that engine and benefit from it. Where
it's really nice to have at least a round or two where you get to enjoy the engine you've constructed rather than you get your engine together and the game ends. A lot of them do that. Yeah.
It's a weird balancing act that you have to do in engine building games that some do really well and some just really don't seem to get it all.
I remember we talked a lot about that at Imperial Settlers.
Yeah. I want to try that one again because I think collectively our group think we weren't playing it.
I'll play it again
as optimally as we should have been. So
when we look at
I will say something
and
and sit in the what's that seat called?
over the there? Penalty box.
The penalty box.
Yeah,
for that one.
Yeah, we can
I will just yell comments and wish Samuel.
Or
best
you
of
could
luck.
just
Sam, your turn yet? Done yet? Nope. Okay.
Nope. You got another 5 actions, Chris.
So back to Through the Ages. Back to Roll Through the Ages. We were mentioning before we turned the mics on that Sam, you were saying this was probably one of the first modern roll and writes.
Yeah. I mean, I have just a mental block when I'm discussing games, so I don't really consider the classics like Yahtzee and Monopoly and other things like that. I don't really consider them as board games mentally. I don't know. That's on
well, I mean,
not a judgment call.
They're not modern board games or hobby board games. They're just like generic board games.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from because it's hard to, when you're talking about board games, it's hard to relate to things like Candyland or Mousetrap, which isn't really a board game. It's just a Rube Goldberg device on a board.
I really enjoy Roll Through the Ages. It's a blast. I like building the economy with the different developments. I love games where you can do upgrades and you have to decide what's important to you and what you're going to prioritize, and if you want to grab the quick points or go for a long-term investment. I love that kind of thing.
Yeah. You say long-term investment, but what does this game take? About 15 to 20 minutes to play? So there's not really a long-term investment. It plays out as you go later into the game, But this is a great game if you're waiting on somebody else and there's only 3 of you there or 4 of you and you're still waiting on other people to come. It's a good game to get into because it's not going to take that long to finish.
Yeah, within context.
Yeah, within the confines of the game, you can make long-term investments that pay off as you go along. So we're actually going to play on the late Bronze Age sheets. The game itself is Roll Through the Ages, the Bronze Age, but you can go on Board Game Geek or onto Eagle-Gryphon and download the late Bronze Age sheets.
So is the late Bronze Age a fan-made edition, or is this an official?
This is as far as I know, it's an official expansion because they distribute it on the website.
I don't remember ever seeing the little ships thing at the bottom here.
So that's a late Bronze Age edition.
Have I never played the late Bronze Age? Oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever played the late Bronze Age edition.
No, I don't. This was a regular Bronze Age.
Yeah, no, same as a regular Bronze Age.
Something to look forward to. I'm really excited now.
All right, so
I was already looking forward to playing this.
Who wants to give the running gear?
It's Roll Through the Ages because you roll a number of dice based on however many cities you have, and then
everyone starts with 3 free cities.
Everyone starts with 3, and depending on the results of your roll, you get to spend different types of currency. You can spend population on building additional cities, so you roll more dice, or on constructing monuments to score points. You get trade goods that you can cash in along with coins to develop your civilization and get special upgrades and protect yourself from disasters, which will show up in the form of skulls on the dice. That about covers it, actually.
Yeah, so
it's a very simple game.
So essentially, the developments, they're going to kind of tweak your die rolls and tweak the abilities that you have to make different aspects of your game and of your civilization a little more efficient. You've got monuments, they're going to give you points. Disasters take away points. And at the end of the game, you essentially are counting up the points that your developments give you, the points that your monuments give you. You get some points for different bonuses through developments and whatnot, and whoever has the highest score wins.
I suppose
so easy.
The final thing to add is you are competing to build monuments.
Yes.
You get more points if you are the first one to build one of the 7 monuments.
If you build a Great Pyramid, somebody else can build a Great Pyramid, but the first person gets 12, the second gets 8.
Yes, that's what it means when I say the first one to build the pyramid. To build a specific wonder gets more points.
The other small aspect...
I miss John being here to threaten you. He would be like throwing a beer at you or grabbing a spoon saying he's going to hold it to your throat.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So the thing about Roll Through the Ages that's kind of unique is this pegboard that tracks all of your resources. And essentially when you roll a trade good... Starting from the bottom, you'll move the peg over 1 space to the right, and you'll go up. And you can only carry over 6 notches, or 6 trade goods, they say, per turn. But underneath the trade goods are their values listed that you can sell them for. So, for instance, the first wood that you have is only worth 1, but the second one's worth 3, the third one's worth 6, the fourth one's worth 10, and it just kind of increases as you go along. So the more wood you acquire, the more wood that you keep, the more valuable it is for you when you go to sell.
And as you move up the pegboard, each good is exponentially more valuable.
Yeah. There's not a terrible learning curve in this game.
No, I find that to be pretty interesting. There are games that do it in a similar fashion, but the use of the pegboard was... All right, I'm going to take a step back. This was one of the early Kickstarters.
Oh, really?
So there were a lot of really good games that came out at the beginning of board gaming on Kickstarter. So Alien Frontiers was one of the first, if not the first, successful board gaming projects that went on to have a long life after Kickstarter. I think it's in its 10th edition now, or its 10th anniversary edition. There's some big box that's coming out this year that looks really nice, but I have the original version. I don't need it, so on and so forth. But go out and get that game. It's really fun. Around the same time was Roll Through the Ages, Fleet, Eminent Domain. These are 3 games that if we haven't covered yet, we're going to cover at some point that
Fleet's on our poll for next month.
And
You
Fleet-
should vote on that poll.
And Fleet is on our You Pick Our Play in May poll on our Discord. Definitely go check that out.
I would definitely vote for that one.
I voted for that one.
I voted for... I've actually voted for Fleet and for Nexus Ops.
I didn't realize we got more than one vote.
You can vote as many times as you want. So, Roll Through the Ages is one of those early Kickstarter games that's still very popular and is still in print. You guys can find it brand new and shrink off of Amazon or in your friendly local game store or eBay that for the same price as you would pay for it new. So
Don't get used to that. We've got some, back to our usual fare coming down the pipeline.
Hard to find games coming to a podcast soon. All right, let's play. We need John here to keep us in line.
yes, we do.
We don't need John.
I miss John.
I miss John too.
I
But
mean, what, you feel
He always
bad?
disagrees. He's got to disagree with us. John's not here, so we don't need John.
We don't need John.
we don't need John. My opinion's always right now that John's not here.
My opinion's right even when John is here, actually.
We'll agree to disagree on that. So, Roll Through the Ages is done. Chris, you have something you want to interject?
I scored more points than you.
Well, now you're a sore winner.
No, you asked why did I win?
I don't remember asking that.
Anyway, Roll Through the Ages. Gentlemen, how did we feel about our game of Roll Through the Ages? Besides Chris
scored
won.
Chris scored more points than me, so I didn't like it.
I think as soon as you identified, oh yeah, I remember the ships kind of broke the game. I don't think anybody has played with ships that I've played with, and I did calculate really quickly that was going to break the game.
I don't think it broke the game.
Well,
it's a fairly easy development to take. Yeah,
We all
everyone's...
could have, but
I mean, you have to. It's one of those things that if you don't want to get left behind, you have to take it. It's not a broken mechanic. It's just, severely handicap yourself when you don't take it.
Yeah.
I mean, frankly,
I always forget about it, to be completely honest.
well, it's because it's not a terribly interesting mechanic,
It's not interesting, and also it's not on the regular Bronze Age.
and it feels very tacked on.
I kind of forget about it. And
It feels very tacked on. It introduces a few elements that I don't think flow naturally with the game.
Yeah, thematically, it seems weird that you can trade $6 worth of wood for $30 worth of arrowheads.
it was $1 worth of food.
Well,
wood
one for one.
So
Two
you,
for
you
two.
can use the ships to trade one slot of a cargo of a good for a slot of another good, and so naturally you trade wood, the least valuable good, for spear points, the most valuable good.
And I mean, there are some fringe cases where you wouldn't do that because you don't get change back. So it might make more sense to trade for cloth.
Sure.
He
Or,
kind of thought about it at the end because if he had traded for one more, was it stone? That would have given you 63.
I could have traded it for stone, and it would have
given you more points.
But I think mechanically, it is not a good addition to the game.
Yeah.
I think it disrupts the flow of things. To start with, to build a ship, you have to spend wood and cloth, which feels a little odd because that's really there's only a handful of places where you're spending a specific good.
Yeah, I mean, there are some developments that reference specific goods.
Yeah, like you can spend stone or
Pottery.
or something, but this feels like an incidental side grade, like an additional thing tacked onto the side where it doesn't really connect with the rest of the economy. It's just an extra lever for you to pull that spits out money.
Which seems like it's perfect for you. Like, isn't that what you like, extra levers? Isn't that like certified Samuel?
Okay, yeah, but
I usually like it in the money machine running so that I can buy the higher level items, like the ones that give you for every city you get 2 points or 8 point for every city.
Yeah,
but
the
it's
most
worth
valuable
10.
developments are the ones that give you just points.
Yeah.
In this case, normally I do enjoy additional levers in games that you can interact with. In this case, with the ships,
You felt like the interaction wasn't as...
I mean, it really is just a lever. You build a ship, you pull it to transform cheap goods into valuable goods, and there really wasn't any thought process involved. There wasn't a trade-off. It was just do this, every time you can, right? I don't like going. I don't like slot machines either because you just pull the lever.
So this game was interesting to start. You started with a lot of goods and with money, and I started with a lot of people, and I think Steven started with a lot of disasters, right?
Yeah, Steven started with a lot of disasters.
Love the disasters this game.
So I was able to build up my cities rather quickly, adding more dice. I was rolling 7 dice while you guys were still rolling 5, I think.
Yeah.
And then you got up to 7. How many dice did you end the game with?
I ended up with 6. It took
6.
me a while to get rolling with the dice.
Yeah, frankly, I mean, this is a quick game. It's fairly light as far as these things go.
What was the time?
I did not stop it right at the end. I'm looking at it now, and it says 1 hour. So it
like
was
40 minutes, maybe?
It was about 45 minutes.
45 minutes?
Yeah.
So, that the quickness and ease of play covers a host of sins.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I do think there's an objectively correct way to play this game, and that is to get as many cities as you can as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That did give me a lot more options.
Yeah. So
And I was rolling a lot of people. You just couldn't. I mean,
I could not roll any people. I didn't get my fourth city until like the fourth turn, the fifth
I think
turn,
I'd already
maybe?
finished 3 monuments, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, this is going to be the way to go is to finish the monuments." So I decided to go with the people route.
Yeah.
I let my the coinage or whatever build up a bit when I bought Caravan. I didn't have to buy something each time, but then I wanted to stay close to the number that you guys had because we wanted to get the 7. But it just kind of worked out real well.
Yeah, the risk that you take when you build more cities is you have the potential for more disasters. I mean, I had plenty of disasters with 4 dice, which
And
is
Samuel running Pestilence against us 2 or 3 times.
I think it was 3 times. I hit
So
you
that's
guys with
9
the
points.
pestilence.
Yeah,
I
but-
did it once too.
I mean,
as
I had
well, so that's
I had
12.
19 disasters. Like 4 of those were not being able to feed all my cities, but I mean, it was famine. It was drought after drought after drought, and I'm sitting here thinking, why did I not buy irrigation? But whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
But yeah, the only way you can get a revolt, which is 5 disasters, 5 skull dice, and you lose all of the goods that you've stored, is to have more than 5 cities. So for me, getting to 5 and sometimes 6 is like the sweet spot. Like I don't think I've ever gone to 7, or if I do, it's just because I
always
have
go to
extra
7.
people.
I always pretty much try and go to 7 as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
Then I'm trying for goods so I can buy more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, at a certain point, I'm hoping to roll the disasters because they can come with 2 goods.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's those disasters are a double-edged sword.
I mean, they can be, but in this case, 1 or 2 disasters didn't impact me at all. 3 disasters was actually good for me because it meant you guys lost points. And I just managed the risk and never got more than 3 disasters.
Yeah, when I play, I always go for trying to roll pestilence because I always take like a goods heavy strategy. Like I try to always get caravans, and I try to always end the game with commerce because it's the way that I like to play this one. And with 5, 6, and 7 cities, even giving other people pestilence is really easy, and then you get the 6 goods on top of that. So the dice didn't roll out that way for me, and that's why I ended up with 13 points.
I'm sure it's
was rough.
happened. I'm sure it's happened before, but I don't know if I remember a time where we didn't get to the 7 developments with all the monuments being built.
We've done it before.
Yeah. I mean, the next turn I was going to build my 7. I was going to get my 7th development.
Yeah,
Like,
it's usually the developments. They're kind of usually equal. Like you finish them both on the same time.
yeah. I don't know. It's a fun game. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't win, but for me, the fun of this game isn't necessarily the competition bit. It's rolling the dice and filling out your own sheet.
Yeah,
Right.
and
You just
you manipulating the pegs and having that cool peg board that I don't think there are many games at all that have that as part of a production feature.
So for a 45-minute lightweight game, this one is up there. It's something I enjoy playing this. I mean, I've played this several times in a year as we're waiting for people to try and
Yeah.
And we mentioned it's pretty available. You can go on Amazon right now and buy this for $40, which, I mean, for what you're getting is a pretty darn good deal because This is a game that I only have one game logged, but this is a game that I played a lot before we started logging. I remember there would be game nights where we'd play like 4 games of this back to back.
Oh, yeah.
And then as Chris mentioned, it was always kind of, like in our earlier days, it was always kind of one of those games we went to while we were waiting for John or Jeremy or somebody to show up. Because, there'd be 3 of us, we'd be kind of twiddling our thumbs and, hey, what's a good half-hour game we can play that if we decide to abandon, we can abandon because the 4th player showed up.
Yeah, this is also, it's really fast to get on the table.
Mm-hmm.
You open the box, you grab a sheet for everybody, and you put the dice and the boards down, and you're ready to go.
That's not enough is said about the setup and the teardown of games. Because you look at a game like Mosaic, which I would play more if it were not for the amount of time it takes to set up. The same thing with HeroScape. I would play HeroScape every day if I didn't have to build a board and tear it down.
Yeah. I mean, just look at all the games that are popular on Board Game Arena.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't have to manage the components. You don't have to pull everything out of the box. You don't have to keep track of all the fiddly parts.
That's how we have 30 games of Through the Ages.
Yeah.
Is because we don't have to manage all those little pieces. And those, I love Through the Ages, but those tiny little cubes and the amount of they're not even cubes, they're little discs, right?
I have never played Through the Ages in person.
So there's cubes and there's discs. So resources are cubes, the people are discs, and they're tiny, and it just, wow, what a fiddly game. It's a magnificent game that you have to have very fine motor control to be able to play. And then, as Chris mentioned earlier, a really good memory to remember what you have to get rid of at each age. But BGA takes care of all that for you, and it's a perfect game for BGA.
Yeah, but Roll Through the Ages, it's really easy to pull out of a box and put on the table. So, Chris, you won.
I did.
I
scored more points.
Do you remember why you won? You scored more
scored more points.
Okay. What would you rate Roll Through the Ages, the Late Bronze Age edition?
Like I said, it's a game I enjoy playing. And in honor of my friend Jeremy, I will rate it 7 cities.
7 cities.
7 cities. Okay.
7 cities. All right.
Okay.
Samuel, what do you got?
Well, I didn't win.
That happens sometimes.
I didn't win, but I did have a lot of fun. I built the Great Pyramid. I built an empire worthy of respect and adulation. And, if the dice had been just a little bit kinder to me, I'd have completed the empire development and blown Chris out of the water.
You're only behind by 4 points.
I'm only behind by 4 points.
I knew it was time to end the game.
Yeah. So I had fun. I built my engine.
The writing was on the Great Wall.
I didn't quite get to see my engine take off, but I got to see it spin up.
That was almost a penalty box. Carry on.
So I have to give this game a 7.
Sounds good. So as I mentioned, this is, early in our career, we didn't have as many, So earlier in our time in the hobby, we didn't have as many games as we have now. And quite frankly, there weren't as many games available. So there are a handful that got a lot of play and just had a lot of attention paid to them early on when we started gaming. And Roll Through the Ages is one of those. Like I mentioned, in the early days of Kickstarter, I was really into it. I was really gung-ho. I backed probably like 5 or 6 projects a year at some points, but a lot of those games stood the test of time and are still classic games that get played even today, 10 years later. Or, 15 years later with this one, I think, 2008. With that in mind, with it being, just a game that you can always go to, you're always going to have a good time with.
It's a real gamer's game.
It's a real gamer's game.
It's really easy to roll it onto the table.
So all that being said, Roll Through the Ages, it was a 7 back then, it's a 7 today, and I can't imagine it being anything else out into the future. Just a fantastic game. Go ahead, get yourself a copy if you don't already have it. If you're a fan of roll and writes, this one's just not complex at all. It plays really quick. I think you'll love it.
It's the granddaddy.
It's a
Roll
great
on
game.
off the couch and get yourself a copy.
Someone unplug his mic, please.
Wait, who let you out of the penalty box?
Oh, I can hear John saying, "You did not just say that, did you?"
Chris, Sam, and I thank you for joining us in conversation about Roll Through the Ages. You can join us in conversation by visiting our website, gamesfromthecellar.com, where you can find links to our social media and Discord server. We also have a blog and a guild on Board Game Geek. The Pick Our Play for May is concluded, but nominations for the June poll are open. Please join us in our Discord to nominate and vote on games you would like for us to play in June. We look forward to hearing from you.